Hello and welcome to On to the Next Project. I'm Brian Miller.
And I'm Adam Krutinger.
And on this show, Adam and I have a weekly free form conversation about building a living and a life with your passion.
And today's topic is going to be working remotely. Now,
Working from home. That's right.
or yeah, we're working from home, and exactly what that means. And obviously, that'll mean something very different to most people. But I have a feeling most people that will be watching are, this thing that we're doing are people that are, creatives that are self-employed or have an entrepreneurial mindset. So I think this is a good topic, especially with, the way the world is changing.
Well, and that's it. And and right now, people like us who are used to working from home, kind of nights and weekends, and me, full time. I think that and entrepreneurs and those kind of people, freelancers and artists, I think a whole lot more people are about to discover what it's like to work from home and all the pros and all the cons and all the things you need to look out for. So let's start here. What do you think is like if you only had 10 seconds in an elevator to give someone advice because they just had to start working from home today, what would you tell them about what to do to do it effectively?
Well, again, it would of course depend on the type of work it is, but I think some good general advice is to, even though you're working at home, try to treat it like you're checking in at work, like you're punching in. To try to block out time so that it doesn't dip into family time or personal time too much. Because one thing that we both know, and we both probably tend to do anyway, is, just whenever something comes up, dealing with it right away. And I think that's the best way. That's the best advice I could give to a normal person. And luckily, I'm not a normal person, so I don't really do that. But and also, my situation's different either, because you are truly working somewhat remotely for most of your job, whereas my day job, I don't do it remotely. I'm a school teacher during the day, but of course, my side interest, mini business, we'll call it, even though I don't like to think of it as a business,
It's
is
a bit.
definitely. What was that?
It's a business. We
Sure.
we we've been having this for years. I've been trying to get you to actually be a business person. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I want to get back into that topic another time too, but yeah, let's call it that for now. That is completely done at home, and a lot of people that are in that same industry of building puppets or really building things for entertainment industry, a lot of them work in like New York and L.A. But since the world is so flat with technology as far as being able to reach people, the gatekeepers are they're still there, but it's not as hard. So I can
Yeah.
still now I can, I've shipped puppets to television shows in New Zealand. I've shipped them to Australia. I've shipped them out to LA and New York before, and Georgia. So it's so possible to do that in my tiny little room here in Buffalo.
Yeah, I think you brought up a really interesting point there about the geographic location. Wherever you live, working from home means a very different thing. If you work from home in New York City, or LA or something, just
Mm,
walk out your door to get a cup of coffee and you're going to bump into a million other creatives and freelancers and artists, just waiting in line. And that's a very different thing than like I live in suburban Connecticut. When I walk out my front door, it's just a quiet community during the day with most people who are at the office somewhere, working. And then if I drive 10 minutes into town and go to a coffee shop, there's just one or two, you know, grandparents that are sitting there in the middle of the day because everybody's at work where I live. And so for a long, long time. But I also, it's interesting because you have like the 9 to 5 where you're around people all day because you're a school teacher. I have
mhm.
the weird thing where like 10% of my life, I'm in the middle of, I mean, I'm the center of attention in conferences with hundreds or thousands of people shaking a million hands, which it's amazing how fast that changed.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I think it's gonna be years before we're shaking hands again. I think we're
Yeah.
gonna be doing this for a long time now. But
Yeah, I heard something. Why even touch people at all? Yeah, I don't wanna touch elbows with somebody either.
so yeah, well, I think I saw a politician
Yeah,
or who was it? It was a Prince Charles, right? He started just doing this, and
I
like
like that. I like
I
it.
I do like that too. But yeah, so I spend like 10% of my life like really inundated with people, and of course that even makes sense because like I talk about human connection for a living, which has me in a really interesting spot over the next couple of months, being the go-to guy for human connection in a world where we can no longer, uh, socialize with people in the real world. It's that's changing. Fascinating what's happening there, but
Yeah, we can't connect in the way that we used to.
no, and you hear me talk about all the time. It's the antidote to loneliness has been studied repeatedly. It's meaningful, frequent in-person interaction. And because that in-person is gone for the foreseeable future for most people right now, and it's probably going to get worse before it gets better, that's there's going to be a real question. And this I think is part of the working from home thing is how do you make meaningful connections with people when you're video conferencing, when you're using email, when you're using phone calls, and you don't have the option to, if you work at a corporation who's now being told to work from home, you can't just walk down and stop by the cubicle or the office. You don't have the break room lunches. You don't even have those little human moments in between. Um, so for me, I think you're dead on. One of the things you need to do if you're working from home right now, and this is your first time doing it, let alone if you've been doing this for a while, is really design your home working space as if it was an office. Close the door when you go to the office. Don't do your work in the living room in front of the TV. Don't do your work sitting on your bed in the bedroom, right? Like I come in here, this is a bigger room than you can maybe I can never tell if people can tell how big this room is on camera. Yours is bigger than people realize too.
Mm.
This is a 14 by 14-foot room because half of it is behind the camera. And so I come in here and do all of my work and all of my creative work in here. And I only do my work in this room. It's the only room in the house I work in. If I'm in the living room, if I'm in the dining room, no work there. And the hard part is because you can work from your phone in the dining room, and
Yeah.
that's the hardest part is leaving that alone. So yeah, I would say scheduling your work like it's a work day, like it's a real work, but also isolating your work into one corner, one part of the house and keeping it there is a big thing too.
Yeah, I think that's fine. And again, it depends on what kind of work because I do 90% of the work in here. The only time I'll bring it into the living room is like if I have like just hours of mindless sewing to do,
Sure.
I'll sit in front of the TV or, whatever and do it there. But yeah, no, I agree with you. Yeah, 100%. But I think one other thing we should try to talk about too is maybe try to give advice to people to how to maybe take what they're doing and turn it into a business that can be done online, you know?
Yeah. Well,
And
what are your thoughts?
I can speak to that a little bit, which is kind of a different point
Mm.
of, puppet building is, just, like, trying to have an online presence alone and not relying on um you know, local clients only or, just opening that door bigger. Because again, like I said before, the world is flat. And now, of course, when I say that now it has a different connotation for
Sure.
obvious reasons, but that's actually the name of a book that I read in college when I was in a technology class. It's called "The World Is Flat" by Thomas Friedman, I think it is. And that's what it was all about, is how before, like, there was those gatekeepers and you had to go to those things, but technology has leveled it all. And, taking your business, whatever it is, and turning it into something that could have a bigger audience. For example, maybe you have a small bakery where you make cupcakes and sell them locally. You'll think, "Well, how am I gonna do that?" You know? And the way to do it is to turn it into a little show, you know? Show how you make your cupcakes, show how you run your business, do these little videos, little how-to things or something like that. But even how-to stuff isn't really necessarily the best way to do it. I just might recommend that if it's someone's, like, first videos, because 'cause you'd be like, "Oh, well, what do I do?" It's a good way to practice this, like, being on camera. But really, just coming up with some sort of meaningful content around what you do is a good way to start.
Yeah, and I mean, so you can go for the
Yeah.
entertainment route, you can go for the how-to route, and I think the most successful people have really found a way to bridge those 2, using how-to videos to pull in people for the first time who've never heard of you, or blog posts or emails or whatever, right? If you like, so if you're a local bakery, to go off of your example, you know you could start building your online presence, a remote version, a remote component to your business by doing how to's for home bakers, like people who just love baking in their house, ways to elevate your home cupcakes, when you're having, parties or whatever, social gatherings, or just for yourself, how to get creative with those
And I
things.
can
And
see someone screaming at the computer right now saying, "But how do I make money doing that?" You know?
right,
And one thing I'd say is, once you start building that audience, you can they'll find value in you, and maybe you sell a digital recipe page for, like,
right.
$3, and maybe you release one every month. And after, like, a year or 2, you've got a whole bunch of little digital products there that can just be trickling in some income without having to turn on the oven once.
Right, and they can be compiled into a recipe book, and
Yeah. Oh,
and the
yeah.
goal isn't to get your digital recipe book somehow into a physical form in Barnes& and Noble. The point is that what we're going for now is not the mass market, right? That I think the internet fools people into thinking that the internet is huge, right? That, like, well, how do I compete with the whole world, right? And the idea is, no, no, no. The internet is tiny. What the internet has done, right? It flattened the world, so it gave us reach to everybody, which means we can go find the 1,000 people on planet Earth that were most interested in who we are and what we do, and just produce stuff for them. You don't need to compete with every baker in the entire world just because they're all on the internet. You just need to find the 100 or 500 or 1,000 or 10,000 people who are most interested in who you are and your take on baking. It doesn't matter it's been done by a million other people. You just need to find the people who want your personalized, your specific take. Like, I have a passion for audio, and I make these audio tutorials on a separate channel. I have an online course for audio. The stuff I'm teaching is there has been taught to death. It's been taught a million times. I'm not reinventing audio production, but the people who've spent years following me and got to like me, some of them, they started following me because I was making camera reviews 5 years ago, but now they're buying my book on human connection because they like me, and they're listening to my podcast about, networking because they like me, and some of them are buying an audio course that I have, that because right, and they're buying mine instead of somebody else's simply because they have a personal relationship with me. It's
Yeah.
not because of the content itself. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah.
essentially, like, one thing we you're doing is just treating your name like a brand,
Mhm.
and just putting only positive, putting out, "I am Brian Miller, and I am just trying to give you guys tips on anything, whether it's audio, whether it's on video stuff, or your main business, personal connection." And even though they came for the audio stuff, they stay for you at that point, because I know you used to do
Yeah.
your vlogs and stuff as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just essentially just, giving value in any way that you can.
Yeah, so there's any other actually, let's make sure that you go in the comments and let us know if you do work from home, if you're being told right now that you're supposed to start working from home. We definitely want to know, if in the middle of all of this, if you're doing it for the first time, what challenges you're finding already, what you're worried about, what you're not sure how to do. Um, any other tips that you think, for just kind of practical tips? Because I some like the mindset. We just spent a while on the mindset stuff,
Yeah.
but there's just some practical stuff like you you don't if you're working from home, the 8-hour workday no longer applies. And I feel like this is really important, is that think about what work you actually do when you go to the office, right? How much of the 8 hours or 9 hours you spend at the office do you actually get real work done that matters? Probably a small fraction of that. And what I would say to that is you can probably get the same amount of good work done in half of a normal working day when you're working from home and you don't have all the distractions and the break room and people buzzing around you. And so you could do it in one shot, you could spread it out, you can kind of choose. For me, I'll work all day from home, but I do it in bursts that make sense for me, and I'll take extended breaks. I'll go on a walk for half an hour. I'll sit down and listen to music for a little while, and you don't need to feel guilty or bad about doing those things. You actually get this amazing opportunity to take how you get work done best and turn that into a schedule that works for you, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, the only thing I'd add into that, is if you wanna go more in the, production route that I was talking about and making yourself a brand and producing some sort of content that can give people value, is the biggest hurdle I find that people have to get over is just they get too stuck up on trying to make the video perfect
Mm,
and stuff like that. And one thing I tell you all the time is, to me, perfection is the antithesis of creativity. I'd rather have, spend, if it takes you, 10 hours to make one thing perfect, but you can get 80% there in an hour, and that last, 10% is just like, the hours of polishing. That's what it is in most artworks. But we're at a point right now in the world where it's more about volume, and I'd rather have 10 videos at 80% than one at 100% in the same amount of time. So, and not only that is, and the way to get it better and they make it more perfect is just by practicing too, because you're going to explore who you are as a presenter. And the only way to do that is by presenting and by putting it out there to get feedback back from people too. If you look at some of my first videos, now I don't mean the first videos I ever posted, because like a lot of people of my time, the first couple are just like random videos of just nonsense. But probably about 10 years ago or so was one of my first videos where I'm like, okay, let me try this YouTube thing. And from that point, I mean, I look back at that video and cringe. Okay. Like it was bad, but it's, um, it's what got me here. And just by doing it as often as I could and practicing and letting go a little bit.
So I agree with almost everything you just said, and I think I agree with everything you just said, but I think there's an easy place for people to misunderstand that advice. And so I just want to double back on that. I
Sure.
agree. Done is better than perfect.
Yeah.
Done is better than perfect.
That's
Like
the way. Yeah.
perfection. I didn't come up with that. That's been said a lot. But
Oh, yeah.
but done is better than perfect. But sometimes when I hear people give that advice that like 80% or 90%, like that's like you don't have to get it all the way to perfect. Yes, but you're going for good enough, right? We're not going for half-assing. It's not like, well, just, slop something together and when it feels like you've done enough to just toss it out there. No, no, no. You wanna make it as good as you're capable of making it right now without going crazy, right? Without going over the edge where you no longer ship, right? The goal is to ship the project into the world, to put the project into the world. So the goal is to do it good enough. But when we talk about good enough, we're really looking backwards, right? You're talking about that video you made that you cringe about.
Mhm.
But the point is, back then, that was probably about as good as you could make it within reason, right? So the point is, at every moment is to make it as good as you can make it while still shipping the product into the world, right? Don't get hung up on that last 10%, that little bit of polishing that's gonna cause you to never put the project
Yeah.
out there. You
No,
need to get it out there.
yeah, I agree with that, and I think, like you said, it's kind of another way of saying the same thing. I guess my only problem with that mentality is in the same way that of detecting whether or not it's perfect is the same problem in detecting whether or not it's good enough. You'll ask yourself the same question: is it good enough then? But yeah, no. Again, I think we're on the same page. My point is just finish it to a
Mhm.
point where it's competent, and then ship it so that you can just be on to the next project. Yeah, see what I did there? Okay.
Nah, nah.
So, and then, because here's the thing, you learn something from every single project you do. I think we talked about that a little bit, like one of the other episodes about me in
Yeah.
puppet building. I'd like to learn something in every single project. And even if that wasn't part of my goal, it would happen every way. It would happen anyway because no project is ever exactly the same. So I would just do that. Get on to the next project as fast as you can because you'll learn something from every single step. So just ship, 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 and the perfection will come. It'll just come naturally by doing it. Again, it's like any sport is perfect evidence of that, or really anything you practice with any mechanical sense to it, whether it's shuffling a deck of cards or something, the more you do it, the better you'll get at it. Um, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's an endless pursuit, and if you ever think you've actually got it perfect, you've clearly misunderstood what you're doing, right? There is no perfection, right? You're not going
Yeah.
to get there, but the goal is to close the gap between last time and perfect, a little, right? To just like you said, you're competing with yourself yesterday. Is this project I'm doing today a little bit better? Did I learn something and implement it from last time?
Yeah.
So
Well,
that's
another thing,
yeah.
just a last point on this, just to button it up, is I forgot where I heard this, but like perfect to you is different than perfect for them. Because just because it's not perfect in your eyes, it might be the perfect thing that they need. I've done some live streams and taught some stuff that was like, oh man, I wish I edited that together or something. And people have gotten so much value on it. And the videos have done better than I had thought that they would. And because people find their own personal value in it, regardless of the value you try to put in it.
And that is what I meant by good enough.
Yes.
Which
Yeah.
is that our pursuit of perfect is very different from what's good enough for the person you're intending it to be for. So I think that's probably a good place to end. Although I feel like we could do 25 episodes in a row about working from home. So
Yeah.
if folks want to comment, leave us questions that you have about working from home. We both have done it for a long time and in very different ways, very different approaches. Most of my work is writing and phone calls and conference calls and stuff like that. Most of Adam's is actually creative, like hands-on creative, in other words.
Hands messy.
Yeah, which I try to avoid at all costs. So this what's happening right now is my nightmare. I I'm a germaphobe in good situations. So yeah, I think that about wraps it up. And let us know what topics you want to hear us cover in future episodes. Are we going to start telling people about this?
Yeah, yeah, we should start telling people about this. But one more thing I just want people to comment on too is I'm sure there's gonna be some people that say, "Well, my job, or my job and or interest, it can't be done from home, and or it can't be digitized in the way you guys are talking about." Let us know because either we can maybe think of a way to help you, or maybe we'll cheers. You're right, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. That's great. All
So
right. Well, I think that's it for this one. I'm going to take off, and until then,
on
on
to
to
the
the
next
next project.
project.